Hey VC, welcome to the Personal Oasis. This is the Blind Island, and today I'm going to be doing something a little different. I want to be talking about one of my absolute favorite artists of all time and ranking my collection of the discography that I own of him, and that would be Tom Waits. He is hands down in my top 3 favorite artists of all time, and I own a dozen albums by him. I don't own his entire discography. It's not that I don't want it, it's that there are certain albums now that are out there that go for above $15 that I just don't feel comfortable spending that amount of money on that album, especially records like Foreign Affairs, where it's not my favorite, or Heart Attack and Vine. It's definitely on my want list, but I'm waiting for the right price. So this is just the stuff that I own right now, and I love all of these albums so much, but this is just my personal ranking and my personal opinion, and hopefully you guys enjoy. So, to start us off at number 12, we have Tom Waits and Crystal Gayle, This One's From the Heart. This came out in 1980. It was the soundtrack to the motion picture film directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and there are some songs on here that are incredible. I love the title track, and also Picking Up After You. He and Crystal Gayle work very well as a duo, even better than he did with Bette Midler on Foreign Affairs. But I have to put this so low in the ranking just because everything else is even better. But I still really like this album. It hits the turntable pretty frequently, and I really enjoy some of the tracks on here. Number 11, Nighthawks at the Diner. This is a faux live album that came out in 1974. I say it's faux because while it was marketed as a live album, it was actually done in studio where they gathered about 30-40 people that A&R approved, and they all got in the studio and pretended that they were at this small diner, which was pretty common practice for a lot of these live albums. They weren't truly live, they were done in the studio. But even though it's low down on the list, this is one of those records where I have to be in the mood to listen to it, because it's Tom Waits in his full beatnik phase. He is telling stories, he's cracking jokes, he's ad-libbing at the piano. Even though it's not really a live concert, you do feel as though you're right in the room with him. And I thoroughly enjoy his anecdotes, but as far as an album experience, there are others that I like to go to before this one. Still, really funny album, and I would suggest you check it out. Number 10, Closing Time. This was Tom Waits' debut album. Came out in 1971 from my understanding, and this is just a record that is chock full of fantastic songs, and many people may be shocked to see it so low down on my ranking. The only reason I put it down here lower is there's actually a record in here that has these songs on it that I prefer to these versions that have big bands behind them. It's definitely one of those where you can tell he was still trying to find his voice as an artist. He sounded more like a beatnik singer-songwriter, more in the vein of what Bruce Springsteen and even James Taylor was doing at the time. Not to compare the two, they are worlds apart. but just a guy that was getting started, very promising debut, only to enhance further upon it later on the road. 9. Heart of Saturday Night, the follow-up to Closing Time. This is, I feel, a stronger release. He has a lot more jazz elements brought into this, with some bass lines and soaring strings behind him on a couple of the tracks. I prefer this release because it seems like his songwriting has also become a little tighter in this one. I love this cover. It's just, what a scene of him just right outside an old dirty dive. I love it. I would highly recommend this album to anybody, and it's what's playing on the turntable right now. Number 8, Blood Money. This was part of a pair of albums that came out in 2002. This was actually the very first Tom Waits album I ever purchased, and I was immediately captivated by his growl. I had always been into Bob Dylan and Captain Beefheart, and it felt like the two had met and had a love child, and his name was Tom Waits. Coney Island Baby is one of my favorite tracks from this album, and it just showed me that a guy could have a lot of ferocity but a tender side too. So great record and a great introduction to the man and the myth, the legend. Number 7, Small Change by Tom Waits. A lot of people would consider this to be the masterpiece of his early material. I think that there is one other record that surpasses it, just by my personal estimation, but this is a phenomenal record. So many great tunes, and he had fully perfected his sad sack, drunk beatnik shtick by this time, and really, it felt like it was lived in. And his voice had become very craggly and just crunchy by this time. So all of the softness was gone, and all that was left was a ragged husk, and it's fascinating to listen to. I would highly recommend it. Number 6, Blue Valentine. This to me is his best early material. It's right around that time he was making a transition. He was starting to get tired of his old routines, and you definitely get a bit of that here with the opening track Someday from the West Side Story with those big string sections and horns. But then you get songs like Christmas Card from a Hooker in Minneapolis and Kentucky Avenue. There are so many great tunes on here, and the title track too just makes me want to cry my eyes out. Great record, super well done. Check it out. Number 5, Early Years, Volume 2. I know I might be cheating here by picking out a compilation album that came out years after the original albums that these songs went to, but I come back to this record time and time again. It is just him, his guitar, and piano, playing demos of all the great tracks that came on his earliest records, and I prefer the versions that are found here. There's a volume 1 to this, but I like volume 2 even better, especially his version of I Hope That I Don't Fall in Love With You is really, really well done on this album. Check it out. Number 4, Bone Machine. Now, I will not lie, I prefer Tom Waits' later period to his earlier material, and this is definitely a crown jewel of that. There are just a couple others that I believe surpass it, but only slightly. Great, great album. Number 3, Alice. A lot of people may be shocked to see this one so high up on the list, but to me, this is a masterpiece. And not just any masterpiece, one of my top 10 favorite albums of all time. I find this to be so cohesive, one of the best front to back albums ever written. there's not a weak track in here. It's sad, forlorn, funny, romantic, bitter, angry. So good. This is, if you're gonna listen to any late period Tom Waits record, this is the album to listen to. Now the top two, it's really a toss-up. I mean, you could switch these at any time. I think that they're both pretty much matched, but I had to choose which one edges the other out, and I just went with basically what I choose right now. Number 2, Swordfish Trombones. This is when Tom Waits shed his beatnik exterior and became a junkyard composer. He takes all of these weird sounding instruments and brings them together to create an album of sounds like you have never heard before. It's part German avant-garde piece and Captain Beefheart blues. It's incredible. It's one of the greatest albums of all time and highly recommended. And number 1, Rain Dogs. As if there could be anything else, Rain Dogs is his crowning achievement, his best work ever, and it just has, every single song has something new, something fresh to offer the ear. It takes you on a journey and never lets go. I say this is a seminal piece and it must be in every single person's collection. Well, what did you guys think? Would there be something else that you would put higher up on the list, lower on the list? Is there something missing on here from his early material that is absolutely essential in your opinion? Please let us know in the comments below. And I really hope that you guys have a great day on your own personal oasis. Cheers.